Hello everyone, my name is Noah Raven and welcome to the Xander Zone. I just want to quickly start off by saying I got a new background and art style, and I really want to thank a viewer Neon for reaching out to me and for making the background line art for me, and my girlfriend Mellacorn for coloring in the background and making the new art style of my characters. It's absolutely insane, really fun people to work with. I enjoy working with both of them, lots of fun. You can find all their links in the description and you can commission them and all that fun stuff, so yeah. Anyways, in today's episode, we'll be talking about who the protagonist is in FNAF 4 and what this means for the story of FNAF as a whole. I will have this sectioned off in different parts. What is explained FNAF 4, then the next sections will go into who it could be based off of 3 popular characters I see people bring up, which are Michael, Crying Child, and Rory. Then we will try to piece everything together to build the true story of FNAF 4. Now before we get into the video, we have a goal of, well, can't be 1,250 subs anymore like I wrote in the script, so let's go for 2,000 subs by the end of next month. So, if you enjoy this video, hit that like and subscribe button as it would mean so much to me. Share this video with your friends and family as every bit helps, and while you're at it, comment down below your thoughts, theories, disagreements, or really just anything at all. Just remember to keep it kind, calm, and respectful. Now without further ado, let's get right into the video. Okay, so let's get into what the story of FNAF 4 is and what we know about its protagonist from purely the games and then the books. The story of FNAF 4 from the game follows the Crying Child in the build-up to his birthday, in which the Crying Child is bullied day by day, and then his brother Michael, one of the 4 bullies, carries him over to Fredbear and tells the others that the Crying Child wants to give Fredbear a big kiss. So on 3, 1, 2, 3. Fredbear bites the Crying Child, not unaliving him, but putting him in a coma as a result of his frontal lobe being bitten off. Now, I'll not go into more as I would be talking about why Crying Child would be the protagonist, and that's for his own respective section. However, to continue on what we know about FNAF 4, we know there's a high chance based off of the books and FNAF's location that the nightmares could have been caused by illusion discs and hallucination gas as a result of the Silver Eyes trilogy and the story from Tales of the Pizzaplex, Didophobia. Now, in the Silver Eyes trilogy, specifically the Twisted ones, the twisted animatronics are made by rather normal-looking animatronics with illusion discs to make them look more twisted. With Didophobia, Rory tries to escape the FNAF 4 area, but is lured back by a recording. However, we find out that Rory's nightmares were just dummies on carts with the effects of some hallucination gas, making Rory see them scarier than they actually are. FNAF's dislocation supports both of these, with Foot-Type Freddy possibly having an illusion disc, and in Ennard's boss fight office, we can see on the cams some canisters of what would be hallucination gases. We also see in FNAF's location the layout of the FNAF 4 house. So, FNAF's location and FNAF 4 are connected. So, what do we know about our protagonist? Well, we know that the protagonist has some connection to a hospital bed with flowers, a pill bottle, and an IV drip being Easter eggs you can see playing through the game as Easter eggs by the bed. We also know that this kid is short, reaching just about to the doorknob, maybe a little shorter. We also know that this kid has heard the FNAF 1 phone calls as a result of yet another Easter egg in FNAF 4, in which you can hear the FNAF 1 phone call in reverse. Otherwise, that's about all we know about the protagonist of FNAF 4. We don't really know much about him from FNAF 4 otherwise. However, we do find out more about him in some later entries, though those later entries will be spoken of in their respective candidates. Speaking of the candidates, let's get into the first candidate right now. Okay, so let's get into evidence for Crying Child being our protagonist for FNAF 4. First, we have the fact that FNAF 4 follows the Crying Child in the After Night minigames. FNAF 4 is also established around the Bite of 83, as well as specifically Crying Child's life leading up to it, so it makes sense that the gameplay also has the Crying Child as our protagonist. The Crying Child would also be tall enough to be the height of the person we play as in FNAF 4. As the Crying Child is still a little kid at this time of the Bite of 83, this supports the Crying Child even more, as height is a major aspect for this character. Next piece of evidence is the hospital pieces that are Easter eggs. The Crying Child was the one who went to the hospital after the bite, so thus in his nightmares, there's a chance that the Crying Child would see these things in his nightmares during his coma. We also know that the Crying Child was extremely afraid of the animatronics, so if FNAF 4 is a nightmare, it would make sense why the Crying Child would dream of nightmarish versions of the animatronics. We also know that the Crying Child personally had the toys we see in FNAF 4, being a purple telephone and other things in the room because of the security logbook, meaning the crying child was here at some point. Now we get into the issues with the crying child being our protagonist. First is the FNAF 1 call. The crying child wouldn't have heard this call, as FNAF 1 takes place almost 10 years after the bite of 83, meaning that if the crying child would have heard this call, crying child would either have to still be around and be moved to the FNAF 1 location to hear the call and then have these nightmares, or it just isn't possible. Next is also the hospital pieces. When in a coma, it is possible to hear things from outside your coma, but to see, you can't. Your eyes are closed, meaning that the crying child wouldn't have been able to see the flowers, pill bottle, and IV drip through his whole stay at the entire hospital. There's also FNAF 4 being influenced by illusion discs and hallucination gas. However, this doesn't really rule out the crying child, as all we know that William was a horrible father and could have put the crying child down there to punish him for something. However, we don't have any evidence of this in game. So let's get into our next candidate, being Michael Afton. Michael Afton is interesting, as there's a lot going for and against him. First piece of evidence for Michael is the FNAF 1 phone call. Michael, to our knowledge, would have been the only person who could have heard this call, and this would explain why it's heard in FNAF 4. Next is the hospital bed pieces. We know Michael felt horrible for what he did to his brother, and was likely there often, even being there when the crying child passed. So, Michael may remember these things next to his brother very well. Next is the animatronics. If FNAF 4 takes place during or after FNAF 1, it is reasonable to say that Michael would have some fear of the animatronics, and considering they are Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Fredbear, it makes sense. The main four being nightmarish versions of what he deals with every night, and Fredbear being the thing that took his brother. There's also the chance that, as punishment, William exposed Michael to the experience after the bite of 83. However, we don't have any evidence for that. Lastly, Michael knows of Nightmare Fredbear as he draws him in the security logbook, meaning at some point, Michael did see the nightmares. However, that's all there is for his chances of being the FNAF 4 protagonist. So let's get into the issues. First is the height difference. Michael would be way too tall to be our protagonist, even when the bite of 83 happened. So unless FNAF 4 is a dream and Michael would be dreaming about what it may have been like for his brother, I don't see the height working. Next is the fear of the animatronics. Michael, to our knowledge, has never really been scared of the animatronics, and even in some cases chasing after them. So it doesn't seem like Michael to really be scared of them, or to have nightmares of them, or to even fear them if he was the one in the experiments. Though, let's get into Rory's chances of being our protagonist. Rory, actually insanely enough, has a lot of evidence for him, so let's get into it. We know Rory has been in the FNAF 4 location for a long time, 17 years to be exact. So at first, he would have been a child, maybe the same age as the crying child, so the height in the beginning would make sense. Next is the nightmares. Now, with illusion discs and gas, it seems it could be influence what you can see. If you are given a plain Freddy doll and see it with the effects of the illusion discs and gas, you'll most likely see a nightmarish version of Freddy. Rory was obviously under the effects of at least the gas. It was definitely in the FNAF 4 location for most of his life. So odds are he would have seen these animatronics more and more, though. What about Nightmare? Well, after abandonment of the location, was to say that the illusion disc was starting to mess up, destroying the Nightmare Fredbear to turn into Nightmare, and it still resembles Fredbear but not quite, or alternatively, the suit that was on that cart would have been deteriorating, thus making it seem like Nightmare. Still Nightmare Fredbear, because it's, still his suit, but Nightmare, because it's worn down. Though, that's about it for evidence for Rory, so let's get into his issues. Rory, to our knowledge, hasn't visited a hospital, so for hospital equipment just randomly appearing wouldn't make sense for him. Sure, it could have been swapped out by William or someone, but we don't have any evidence for that. Next is the FNAF 1 phone call. Even if Rory was put down there after FNAF 1, how would Rory have heard this call, especially as a kid? It could have been a distorted recording, but yet again, why would William do this? Couldn't he just use the ones from Fredbear's that odds are he already has? If FNAF 4 is a dream, then why would Rory be having them this often, and specifically of the animatronics? It wouldn't make sense, as Rory would have either been too young to even remember them, or even go to the location, as he was down there for pretty much his whole life. Though, if he did visit, and it was recent enough, then there's a chance he'd have nightmares of them, but yet again, he experienced it as an actual experiment, not a nightmare. So let's get into the true story of FNAF 4 after dissecting our candidates. Okay, let's get into the true story of FNAF 4. I'll have something in the bottom left corner of the screen telling you if it's speculation or if there's actual evidence backing it up. Now let's get into it. William, wanting to understand the human mind and its fears, creates the FNAF 4 hallucination gas and illusion discs, but he needs someone to be able to test it on. He didn't think the government would allow this, and at first, he didn't want to use his child, but without anyone else, plus with the fact that the crying child was horrified by the animatronics, he saw this as a win-win situation. He gets his experiment started, and he also helps his son get over his fears, so that he won't have to deal with him crying all the time at Fredbear's. The crying child, as a result of this experience, only made his fear worse, making him tremble and even fall to the ground in fear at just the sight of a normal animatronic, and even the slightest scare from his brother Michael. Yet, every night, William kept exposing his son to the experiments. That is until Crying Child's birthday, when Michael and his 3 bully friends lifted the Crying Child into Fredbear's mouth, thus unaliving him in the hospital later. William, angry with the fact that his son was lost, not because he lost his son, but because his partner's design failed, Michael unalived the Crying Child, and most importantly, he didn't have a test subject anymore. So William went looking for a new test subject, and found Henry's daughter and unalived her for revenge, for taking his test subject away from him. And after William kept searching, and he found a kid named Rory, William lured Rory to follow him and trapped him to be experimented on as his new test subject. Now, we don't know when William abandoned the project in the games and just left Rory there. However, we knew he did at some point. Odds are it was in 1993 or a few years prior as a result of when FNAF's dislocation took place, as William was still going into the bunker. However, fast forward now to 1993. Michael is working at the FNAF 1 location and he comes across a yellow bear, Fredbear. This suit had something strange about it, and when Michael would go to bed at night, he would have strange dreams, almost like memories that weren't his own. Michael didn't know what was happening, but due to the evidence in the Tales book, Alone Together, Michael was being possessed by his own brother, as one of the signs of possession is having memories that aren't your own. The crying child was trying to reach out to Michael, though it failed, only possessing him and giving Michael the horrifying experiments that the crying child had to go through. The crying child is who we play as through Michael's eyes. It explains the distorted FNAF 1 call, the hospital stuff we see, the nightmares, and contributes to both sides perfectly, being an experiment and being something purely in Michael's head, with Rory still being abandoned to fend off against the nightmares alone for the rest of his life. Michael drew Nightmare Fredbear as a result of the possession. It also explains why the crying child has memory issues, as in the same tale story as before. The main protagonist can't remember why or how he passed away. It could decipher he wasn't alive until after he discovered his own body, because his grandma who recently passed told him to search more. Cassidy, in the logbook, is trying to help the crying child realize he isn't alive anymore, that he has passed, and is stuck in a suit. Okay, so let's get into the issues. The biggest issue with this is Rory. Personally, I'm someone who believes the Silver Eyes and Fazbear's Frights take place in their own universe. However, Tales from the Pizzaplex have me more intrigued in believing it takes place in the games universe, at least to a degree. After all, there's so many stories with parallels to the games, with some characters even bleeding over into the games universe, meaning that either the Tales books are canon or an extremely close parallel to the games universe. So with Rory fitting in the story, the beginning as to how he got there is pure speculation. However, the rest is good evidence for him. With the crying child, there isn't much evidence for him being there. However, considering he had a purple phone and other toys that are in the FNAF 4 area, as well as his insane fear of the animatronics, it isn't crazy to say that he could have been there. Otherwise, the rest works well. With how I interpret the story in Michael, it honestly fits almost perfectly. Now, it is a theory, so it will always have its issues. But why Michael would know of Nightmare Fredbear and other things, it works well. Though, let's get into my final thoughts. Okay, I have to give this theory a solid 9 out of 10. It still has some issues, but they are quite minor, only being the very beginning to it, and when Rory was abandoned. Otherwise, the overall story of if it makes sense, and if you saw my Sister Location timeline video, this explains how Michael knew that the animatronics were possessed in the first place. It sucks that there's some issues with it, but it's just a theory, so remember to take everything I say with a grain of salt. Though, let me know your thoughts, disagreements, and your own theories in the comments. Just remember to keep it kind, calm, and respectful. Alright, that is all that I have for this episode. I really enjoyed making this episode. I really enjoyed seeing, you know, the new background and action and everything. It's so cool. I love how, like, fluffy and cute it feels. I love it. It's really my kind of vibe. So, again, thank you so much to Neon and Mellacorn. Of course, you commission them. All of their links are in the description. And if you do commission them, tell them that I sent you. It would be so cool to, you know, hear from them that, you know, you guys are also supporting them. It's a really cool thing that, you know, is kind of a dream of mine to help support other creators as well as smaller creators too, just like me. That's a dream of mine come true. So yeah, if you do commission them, tell them that I sent you. To continue, I also want to quickly mention that by the time this episode comes out, in case you're wondering, I am recording this about 3 days before the Shadow Animatronic theory comes out. By the time this comes out, the next week we'll be starting Bending the Ink Machine, because I'm just going to take a slight break from FNAF gameplay on the channel, and then after that we will start FNAF 4. So that is what's going to happen with that. So we will continue the 100% of FNAF games series. It's just, I kind of want to take a little break. You know, we did FNAF 1, 2, and 3 back to back to back, like week by week. So I kind of want to take a little break and then get right back into it. So yeah, otherwise, I don't really have too much else to say. One thing I do want to ask is, you know, what are your guys' thoughts on, like, this kind of style of theory where I go super highly in depth and just go, like, really dig into it? I really want to know what your guys' thoughts are, and to kind of see, like, just how everything kind of flows. And if there's any tips or, you know, any complaints that you guys have, I kind of want to get feedback, because I kind of tried experimenting with a new style, kind of like a more storytelling kind of style, but also a more chill and, you know, vibing kind of style. So let me know what you guys think of that. Otherwise, yeah, that's really everything I gotta say, pretty much. So yeah, I really do hope you all enjoyed. So, if you did, well, since this video isn't gonna come out for almost a whole entire month, if you enjoyed this video, please do hit that like, subscribe button, as we have a goal of 2,500 subs at the end of the month. If you don't know, I'm recording this when we're at 1,420, but there's so many videos coming out between this video's release and then that I just kind of want to see what happens. So yeah, while you're at it, comment down below your thoughts, theories, disagreements, anything in the world, and I will do my best to try to respond to you. Just remember to keep everything kind, calm, and respectful as always. And well, share this video with your friends and family, as every single bit helps. And well, that's all I really have for today's episode. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Have a great day, stay safe, and I'll see you in my next video and or live stream, and peace out. Fredbear bites the crying child. Not a lot. We know Michael felt absolutely horrible for what he did to his brother.